Amen. That's one of my favorite songs, by the way.
Oh, yeah?
Yes, sir. Just sit it on the pew. Thank you. We're so glad that you are here this morning. I want to start by saying Happy Father's Day. And I hope you got a brat and a root beer. And if you need to bring one in during services, you know what, I'm good with that too. But it could get awful noisy in here. Just saying. We're going to draw a name at the end. By the way, if you filled out a card, I said it didn't have an email. My wife reminded me some of you older guys might not have an email address. If you'll just write on there none, and that'll count. If you didn't turn one in, go ahead and fill it out, and before we draw, we'll make sure that we've gotten everybody. This morning we're going to be looking at fat fathers. Before we get with that, though, I want to encourage you. First of all, sign up for our Vacation Bible School. We have a lot of people have already signed up for different areas to work. For this to work, we have to work. And we need to fill our places. And we need to do those things. And this year we're doing this weekend started Incredibles 2 at the movie theater. So we took that as our theme. So we're doing Incredible Faith for our Vacation Bible School. Kind of get the kids. By the way, tonight at 6 o'clock at my house, bring finger foods and a lawn chair. We're going to do an outdoor movie. We're going to watch Incredibles 1 to kind of get us up. And by the way, it's a father movie. So we're going to do that. And tonight at my house, 6 o'clock, bring your lawn chair, and we'll do an outdoor movie. And I've got all the stuff ready to go for that. We invite you to come out. But before we get started, I want to show you this video that I'm going to show you is for dads, but it also sets the pace for our Vacation Bible School at the same time. I'm getting two for my money on this, so watch this.
Hello, you ready to be taken down?
Do you have a favorite superhero?
Yep, he's the best.
Nuh-uh, my superhero is the best.
What can your superhero do?
My superhero isn't afraid of anything.
Oh, yeah? Well, my superhero helps people whenever they need it. He even helps cats.
Help! My cat is stuck in the tree. Superhero is stronger than 1,000,000 gajillion warriors.
Even when bad guys come to ruin the day, nothing is impossible for my superhero to defeat.
My favorite superhero wants to teach me to be a superhero just like him.
You are an expert in God's law. What does God say? Love God with all of your heart and your neighbor as yourself. You're right. Do that and you'll have eternal life.
Unlike some superheroes, mine knows where his powers come from. Hey, Dad!
My favorite superhero isn't Superman or Batman or Wolverine or Iron Man.
My favorite superhero is better than all of those combined.
My favorite superhero is my dad.
Mine too.
Heads up! Who's ready for a water balloon fight? Somebody help!
And we certainly have some super dads in this congregation. We appreciate you being here this morning. We want to celebrate our dads, the legacy that they've left for us, for the good things that they do, for all the love that they show us. We fed you this morning, so I thought we'd talk about how God is looking for some fat fathers. That's what we're going to be looking at this morning. And, we're going to start. It's kind of hard for us, dads oftentimes. Being a father is not the easiest thing in the world. Even starting out can be hard. A doctor was holding a newborn baby that just delivered. The baby looked at him and said, "Are you my father?" Doctor said, "No, I'm the doctor that delivered you." Then the doctor handed the baby over to the nurse. The baby looked at the nurse and said, "Are you my father?" The nurse said, "No, I'm just a nurse taking care of you." And then she handed him over to the new dad. The baby looked at him and said, "Are you my father?" The new father said proudly, "Yes, I am your dad." Then the baby started poking the father with his forefinger over and over again and said, "Well, how does that feel to you?" 4 expectant fathers were in a Minnesota hospital They were waiting for the birth of their children. Back in the days, you sat in the waiting room when the children were born. And they were there, and the nurse arrived and proudly announced to the first man, "Congratulations, you're the father of twins." "What a coincidence," he said. "I work for the Minnesota Twin baseball team." Later, the nurse returned and congratulated a second father with the birth of triplets. "Wow, that's incredible," he said. "I work for the 3M company." An hour later, the nurse returned congratulating the third father on the birth of quadruplets. Stunned, he could barely reply. He said, "I don't believe it. I work for the Four Seasons Hotel." After that, everyone turned to the fourth guy, and he just fainted and fell out on the floor. The nurse rushed to his side. Slowly, he regained his consciousness, but they could hear him muttering over and over again, "I should have never taken that job at the 7-Eleven. I should have never taken that job at the 7-Eleven. Being a father is a scary business. Now imagine saying, one of these kids saying, my girls come up and saying to somebody, one of to me, come up to me and says, "Dad," said, they call me Tater. They said, "Tater." By the way, they call me Tater because Gala's Mater. Mater came from the Russian word for matriarch. The Russian word for mater, where they got it is it's M-A-T backwards R. When the girls were little, when we lived in Russia, they said, "That looks like the word mater." And they said, "How are we, well, when we have kids, that's what our kids are going to call you, Mom. They're going to call you Mater." And they said, "Well, if we're going to call Mom Mater, what are we going to call Dad?" And I said, "Well, if you're going to call her Mater, you're going to call me Tater, and they'll just be my tater tots." But can you imagine one of them coming up to me and says, "Hey, Tater, can you make a noise like a frog?" I think, well, yeah, I can do that. Why? Well, because Dad says when you croak, we're going to Disney World. But our lesson this morning is on God is looking for fat fathers. Now, I have an application for all of us, and you'll see, but especially for our fathers. God is looking for fat fathers, F period, A period, T period. That's actually, we're going to use that word. And I realize more and more that the Lord, to build a strong church, we need fat fathers. Let me tell you what I'm talking about. First of all, I want you to notice the F in the word fat stands for faithful. We need some faithful fathers in this church. We need a church full of faithful fathers. Now, what does that word faithful mean to you? I use the word, and then, of course, I know anytime I use a word, matter of fact, we talked about this in our Bible class this morning. Oftentimes, I might use a word, but you may have a different definition. We all have our own definition of different words. What is your definition of faithful? Well, let's clarify that. When I'm talking about needing faithful fathers this morning, you know, most of us, a lot of us, in relation to the church, generally, people will equate faithfulness with attendance. Well, they come to church all the time. And listen, there's some truth to that. I agree. You know, if one does not attend regularly and has no good reason, he's not faithful. As a matter of fact, the Bible teaches in Hebrews 10:25, not forsaking the assembling of ourselves together as the manner of some is, but exhorting one another, so much the more as you see the day approaching. It's easy to equate attendance with faithfulness. But surely you and I know that there's more to it than that. It's more to just showing up, because a dad can show up to the house. As long as you show up at home, are you really faithful? What is faithful? What does that word mean? Well, look at it. I want this morning to break it down into two words. Faithful. Or better, if you want to really get a good idea of what the word faithful means, turn the word around. Full faith. That's what we need to do. Who is faithful? Someone who's full of faith. His faith will act. His faith will move. His faith will obey. He is someone who is full of faith. If you want to know about a faith that will move, look in Hebrews chapter 11. It's a great chapter on faith. It shows us what a faithful person is. He talks about all these great faithful guys of the Bible. And each one of them says, by faith they did. Someone who's full of faith has a faith that moves them. If you are faithful, you're full of faith. You're full of doing things for God. James says a faith without practice is a contradiction. He who truly obeys is faithful. He who truly believes obeys, and flip that over, it's true, the one who truly obeys believes. 2 Corinthians 5 verse 7 says this, for we walk by faith, not by sight. Faith is a walk. It is a lifestyle. It is a direction. How are our children going to learn to walk? You teach them. You teach them how to walk. You show them how to walk. Men, how will our children have faith unless we are faithful? Let me share with you some very disturbing information. I was doing some research to do this lesson, and it's talking about the idea of the relationship between children and their fathers. You will be amazed how much impact a father's faith has on a family. It's amazing the study they did. You heard it said that fathers are the spiritual leaders of the home. Now there's a study that proves that. Researchers examined whether parents' religious habits were transmitted to their offspring. They studied different variables, but one critical factor towered above all the other factors that they put in. The practice of the father determines whether children grow up and attend church or not. Primarily. And here's the shock. The habits of the mother have almost no influence over kids' future devotion. Now, we think it's the other way around so many times. But according to this study that they did, it's actually different than what we think. Fathers, when it comes to spirituality, have much more an impact on their children than the mothers do. Consider these findings. When mom is a regular churchgoer, but dad attends infrequently, just 3% of the kids go on to become regular churchgoers. When mom is regular but dad never attends, just 2% become regular attenders. Now let's flip the chart. What if dad is faithful. When both mom and dad attend church regularly. Now, I just showed you 3% when mom and dad come infrequently. When dad comes infrequently. When dad doesn't come at all, 2%. But when both mom and dad attend church regularly, 33% of kids grow up to attend church regularly. Isn't that interesting? When dad is regular but mom goes only once in a while, the figure jumps up to 38%. Now here's a real bombshell. I didn't expect this. When dad is faithful but mom never attends, 44% of kids end up in regular church attenders. Bottom line is, in spiritual matters, kids take their cue from their father. Isn't that interesting? If dad doesn't go to church, chances are very slim that kids will become regular worshipers. If the kids see religion as mom's thing, they are more likely to become disenchanted. But if dad leads by example, children are 22 times more likely to come and be regular in their service to God. So guys, if you don't think your presence is important, you are dead wrong. How important it is that you set the example for your children. 1 John, talking about Jesus, says, and this is the victory that overcometh the world, even our faith. If we're going to conquer this world, if we're going to be what God wants us to do, if we're going to be faithful, how you live is really your faith. That's one of the points James is making in his letter. How you live is really your faith, and to a large degree, you will pass that on to your children. He tells us in Ephesians 6 and verse 4, fathers, do not exasperate your children. Instead, bring them up in the training and instruction of the Lord. Who? Fathers. Fathers have that responsibility. Fathers, fat fathers, faithful. Fathers that are faithful, full of faith. Dad, is that you? Dad, are you one who shows your children by the way you walk, by the way you talk, by the way you attend services, by the way you serve in the church? By the way, I'm so proud of our college kids and what they did this morning. You know, they got up to church early. I have to admit, they're college kids. They were all late. But I anticipated that. I came early so I could get everything ready because I knew they wouldn't be. But when they got here, they got busy. And they served and they worked and they did that. Someone has taught them well. Dads, it must be you. I'm telling you, I appreciate fathers who set the example for their children. It is so important. Faithful. Now the A stands for not only for faithfulness, but then the A stands for available. Sometimes we talk about potential in the church, don't we? I mean, I tell you, there's a lot of potential, and there's a lot of potential in this church. We'll say, this person has great potential, and some people do have more potential than other people do, don't they? But listen, I would rather have a one-talent man who's available than a 25-talent man who's not. You know what I mean? I would rather have a one-talent man who is available in his service than a 25-talent man who is not available. Jesus didn't build his church on ability. That's not the hot item. In fact, he gave us whatever ability that we need. It's not, is there ability there? The question is availability. It is, will you show up? Will you sign up? Again, dads, before you leave today, Vacation Bible School, that's not just for mothers. I love Isaiah's statement, Isaiah 6. He talks about, he sees God and he says, I heard the voice of the Lord saying, whom shall I send and who will go for us? Then said I, here am I. Send me. Isaiah said he was undone. He was unable. When he stood before God, he says, I am a sinful man in the presence of this holiness. I am undone before God. But he said, here am I. Send me. You know why more is not done in and through the church? Simply people are not available. They may be attenders, but they're not available. If you want to know what the outstanding trait among the greats in the Bible is, it wasn't their IQ. It wasn't their physical strength. It was that they made themselves available. Again, I will say this again. You might want to write this down, but at least put it in here. It is not so much your ability as it is your availability when it comes to serving the Lord. God will use those who will make themselves available. What's a dad worth? His education. Makes good money. Provides for his family. But he's unavailable. Unavailable spiritually. Unavailable emotionally. Unavailable physically. You can be there, by the way, and still be unavailable. You know, sometimes I'm in my office here at the church building, but I may not be available. Here's a dad. Maybe not a lot going for him, not highly educated, doesn't understand a lot about being a father, but he's there for his kids. He is there. He may not know what to do or what to say, but he's there trying, faithful, available. God wants fat fathers. He needs dads that are available for their children. I'm going to tell you something. The biggest problem that we have in our society today is that a lot of parents, fathers included, feel guilty that because they work and they give their kids all these different things, or they're so busy doing everything else that they don't have time for their own kids, so they'll hand them a tablet, they'll hand them a phone, they'll hand them something and send them off and let them do things on their own, and they don't have any time for their kids. God needs fat fathers, faithful fathers, available fathers, and then finally teachable fathers. Jesus over and over is saying, take heed how you hear. Have you not heard? Did you know what Jesus said in John chapter 8, verse 28? He says, so Jesus said, when you have lifted up the Son of Man, then you will know that I am the one I claim to be, and that I do nothing on my own, but speak just what the Father taught me. As my Father taught me, in other words, I speak these things. We have to be teachable. Do you know what men and women are? They're different, aren't they? Oh yeah, they're different. Matter of fact, we're different biologically. I don't know if this is true or not, but I read this, and it kind of shocked me, but it said, and some of you doctors maybe will tell me otherwise, I don't know, but they said that it said that every cell in a man's body is different than every other cell in a woman's body. I read another says, it said, they're different. It says a woman has a thin layer of insulation cells right between her skin, and that's what causes her skin to be prettier than and smoother than a man's skin. Women generally catch fewer diseases than men. They live longer than men. Our skeletal structure weighs more than women's skeletal structure. And biologists tell us that the skulls of men are thicker than women's. Don't say amen, women. Just hold your applause. But teachable. What good is attendance if we're not learning? Fathers may know best, but they don't know everything. Now, honestly, y'all don't know that I see what y'all are doing when I'm here. I stand up here, you're looking at me, guess what? I'm looking back at you. And dads, I see some of y'all sitting there with your arms crossed, your head down, and or you got that glazed over look in your eyes, and you're 1,000 miles away. You better bring it back. You better wake up. You don't know it all. Again, fathers may know best, but they don't know it all. You need to be teachable. You need to be learning. You need to be becoming better. You need to be one of these that are becoming. I'm going to tell you, if you want to be like Jesus, then you need to learn who He is, and you need to learn about Him, and you need to learn. I'm a firm believer in learning. You never get to the point where you don't need to learn something new. Never. I'm signing up for a class at Rome State for the fall. I think you're never too old to learn something. I'm 62 years old. We need to learn. We need to study. I have to study every week. I read something new every day. I'm saying, dads, you need to learn so you can pass it on to your kids. You need to learn what their kids are facing. You need to learn what's out there. What's the word today? F-A-T, fat. If that's for me, tell them I'm busy. God is looking for fat fathers. Listen, He is looking for people who are full of faith, people who are available, people who are teachable, people who, I thought maybe the alarm was going off, it's time for me to leave. We need to be fathers who are there for our kids. Guys, I'm going to give you the greatest gift that I know that I can give you personally. It's 10 minutes to 11, and I'm going to end this sermon. God is looking. We have some great fathers in this congregation. We love our dads. You don't get the applause often that you need. And be honest, in our society today, we don't give our dads the credit that they deserve. And, we put so much emphasis on moms, and moms, y'all are important. Don't make it sound like, I don't want it to sound like that I don't think you guys are important, because, be honest, we wouldn't make it without you guys. But dads, don't let anybody ever undersell your value. You are so valuable in the life of your kids. If you want to look at society today, and the number one problem in society today is absentee fathers. If you want to know why crime in the inner cities are so bad today, absentee fathers. If you want to know why there is so much drug abuse and so many kids that have no idea how to live life anymore, absentee dads. We've got our sheriff sitting here with us this morning. How much trouble do we have because dads aren't around? I mean, he sees it every day. Our society needs men who will stand up for their children, stand up for their church, stand up for what they believe, and live it out so the world can see it. And if we can help you this morning, I want to encourage you, as we stand, we offer the invitation.